So I had this patient the other day, and he said it, and it almost made complete sense. He said, "Well, why wouldn't I just have anti-inflammatory steroids for my brain injury?" And I had to think for a second and go, "Well, it's because there are multiple people that are causing the inflammation. So you've got to deal with all the different people causing the inflammation." So leaky brain um, is really on the rise, and a lot of people are familiar with the term leaky gut. So 60 to 70 million people have dysbiosis or gastrointestinal issues, and around 62 million people have mental health issues or are dealing with a brain injury or some type of mental condition. Interesting that the numbers are almost the same. And I don't want to take away from people that are suffering from loss of a loved one, a divorce, loss of a job, because those things are horrific. But we are seeing a rise in mental health or an exacerbation of conditions because of inflammation in the brain. And a leaky gut is one way that that happens. It is really absolutely phenomenal when you look at a leaky brain and the symptoms because they so closely correlate to a brain injury. I mean, you look up here and headache, migraine, sleep disturbances, severity or sensitivity to light, sound, dizziness, fatigue, memory problems, brain fog, slow processing, anxiety, depression, mood swings. These are all the symptoms that people who have brain injuries are dealing with on a daily basis. And it's not that you have to have all of those symptoms to have a brain injury or a leaky gut. These are just all of the ones that are correlated with each one of these conditions. But we're going to see that there is a common denominator as to why people with brain injuries and leaky guts and leaky brains may be having these conditions, and that there are a few culprits causing this to happen. We have to start with understanding what a leaky gut is. There are tight junctions that seal up our gut and they prevent certain things from coming in, larger particles that are toxins, undigested foods, different bacteria. So when we have these tight junctions separated, we allow things into our gut that can cause all kinds of problems and disrupt our microbiome. So a leaky gut can cause a leaky brain. It's not always the primary cause because other things can cause it, but it is very likely that a lot of people who have leaky guts will have a leaky brain. And the brain has these tight junctions as well. And again, when you have separations of these junctions, different things get in. In fact, when you have a broken blood-brain barrier, which happens from a brain injury, but we're going to see that there are other reasons that can breach the blood-brain barrier and cause a leaky brain. Our body has an immune system and our brain has its own immune system. So when this barrier gets broken down, our body's immune system walks it in to our brain and goes, I don't recognize you. I don't recognize you. Oh, there's heavy metal up there. And it starts to attack parts of the brain. It also starts to attack things that the brain's immune system starts to release because it's got inflammation going on, whether it's from a brain injury or a leaky gut, because there's certain substances that even with a healthy blood-brain barrier can cause the brain's immune system to start to go from an anti-inflammatory state and helping with neurogenesis and neuronal development to pro-inflammatory because it's trying to get rid of what it thinks are the bad guys, bad things. So you can understand now that when this blood-brain barrier gets breached, you've got two immune systems that are now connecting or interacting with each other that are creating inflammation that's causing more inflammation and then more inflammation and this endless loop or cycle that we have to get rid of. I'm in what's called functional neurology, which is a subset of functional medicine. I'm also a severe TBI survivor. So prior to an injury that I had 10 years ago, I was the head educator outside the US for the company that created the Institute of Functional Medicine. I lectured to physicians and practitioners in 23 countries. Then I had a brain injury, a severe brain injury, and nobody thought I was going to come back. And by the grace of God, I found some people that really understood functional neurology, with one being a fellow at Harvard Medical. And when I came back 100%. So when I see people saying you don't recover from brain injuries, I'm living proof that that's not true, that it can happen. In fact, one of the guys that was in treatment with me was in a wheelchair that was holding his head up like this. He got out of that wheelchair and was playing ping pong in about 6 months. So these things are possible and can happen. But you really need to understand that we're dealing with two different walls that need to be rebuilt and protected. And even if they are rebuilt and protected, we have to look at a variety of other things because if we don't, then those walls can come back down again. So it's not just a leaky gut that causes a leaky brain or a blood-brain barrier disruption. Stress. Who of us are not stressed these days? I mean, we've got our political environment, we've got wars going on, money's tight for people, we're more isolated than ever, so our stress levels are crazy. Then we're exposed to environmental toxins on a level that just gets more and more dramatic every year. So we've got environmental toxins, and our brain is the most susceptible to oxidative stress. It's of all the parts of our bodies, our brain is the most susceptible to oxidative stress. So you add environmental toxins, stress, and then a leaky gut. And all of these things can break down this blood-brain barrier. And then you get what's called a leaky brain, and you have symptoms that are very similar to those of a traumatic brain injury. And the beautiful thing is that after 8, 9 years of studying, is not finding the symptom, which is inflammation, but the root cause. What are the different things that are creating this inflammation and correcting those? And then we can have some really great results. So when we look at head injuries, traumatic brain injuries, this was kind of one of the new articles that came out probably around 2018. And it was so wonderful because it finally gave credence to the fact that when you have a brain injury, that the body's immune system gets in and starts attacking the brain and doing brain damage. And they were saying scientists have uncovered a surprising way to reduce brain damage from head injuries and stopping the body's immune system from killing brain cells. I was so excited to see this. And then it says, therefore, there's no effective treatments to prevent this. But we've now realized that it's not just replacing or rebuilding that blood-brain barrier because there's several other things that are going on that can cause that blood-brain barrier to get broken down over and over again. So we have to look at everything together to really look at mental health conditions and brain injuries. Here's another example. So we've got two immune systems now that start to interact with each other, and the body's immune system is coding different parts of the brain as foreign invaders. The brain's immune system is kind of getting aggravated and releasing things, and it's producing a lot of inflammation. And one of the things that it's producing is S100B, which normally at low levels is neuroprotective and creates neurogenesis. So S100B at lower levels is healthy. But then what happens is the body produces excess amounts of S100B and it becomes inflammatory. And then get this, S100B goes the other way from the brain into the body. The body's immune system codes it as a foreign invader. So now this beautiful substance in small levels that helps neurogenesis in neurons becomes coded as a foreign invader. So it's a complex system of things that are happening. But if we look at things and we understand each one of the different areas that need to be fixed, we can really make massive improvements with brain injuries and a leaky brain and a leaky gut. So when you have dysbiosis in the gut, and that's why I said 60 to 70 million people have dysbiosis and about 62% have mental health conditions. Well, when you have dysbiosis in the gut, you can see over here that you have changes in behavior and mood and susceptibility to inflammation. So it's causing depression. It's causing different changes in our brain because of the gut brain axis. But when you have a healthy microbiome, you start to produce the feel good chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, neuroepinephrine, and GABA. So just having a healthy microbiome in and of itself can do a lot just for the way that we feel in terms of our mental health. But a leaky gut really equals a leaky brain, which equals brain damage. And these toxins from a leaky gut, like TNF, tumor necrosis factor, or IL-6, interleukin 6, they get up into the brain and they start creating inflammation. So again, we're dealing with another source of inflammation. Lipopolysaccharides, which even if you have a healthy blood-brain barrier, can cross the blood-brain barrier because you have a leaky gut and they should never get there in the first place. And they go straight up and go into the microglia, the brain's immune system, and overactivate it to start becoming pro-inflammatory and causing a lot of neuroinflammation. This is why people with brain injuries that 2, 3, 4, 5 years later end up becoming worse off because they're not only dealing with the damage that they had from the beginning, but their brain is continued to be attacked on an ongoing basis. And I realized this when I started to get patients coming to me that had symptoms of a brain injury, but they didn't have a brain injury. But I realized they had a broken blood-brain barrier And in a lot of cases, they had a leaky gut. So our gut has 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. And when we don't have a healthy gut, all kinds of things start to happen because of the gut brain axis. So Hippocrates was right that just about every disease starts in the gut. And it is one of the areas that is literally one of the first things we want to fix. So when we're dealing with mental health, we absolutely want to fix parts of the brain. We want to repair that blood-brain barrier, but we want to improve gut health and get a healthy microbiome and seal that gut back up. It is beyond critical. In fact, fiber, which I want to go into in a little more detail later as to what type of fiber, because so many people have looked at fiber and they're like, well, Metamucil, and that's what older people take, like me, and helps you to go to the bathroom. But 95% of Americans are fiber deficient, and the right kind of fiber is loaded with antioxidants and what are called prebiotics, and they help produce a healthy amount of bacteria and diverse different types of bacteria, which are just as important as the amount of bacteria to create a healthy microbiome. And they contain short chain fatty acids, which help seal up the gut. Fiber also reduces cortisol levels. So look at this. This is really interesting because here is a study where we're looking at cortisol as a biomarker of mental disorder severity, meaning that the higher the cortisol level, the more severity of the mental health disorder. And that could be from depression to bipolar to schizophrenia. And all of those conditions started to come down when they reduced cortisol levels. Now, the way that they did this in the study was with amitriptyline, which is antidepressant, but fiber also reduces cortisol. So we're beginning to see that fiber has some amazing factors to it. And the right kind of fiber has these prebiotics to create a healthy microbiome. It stops or seals the gut and stops those inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 6 and tumor necrosis factor and lipopolysaccharides from getting up into the brain and starting to aggravate the brain's immune system. So fiber really is a superfood. And in my website, I'll put in one or some of the better fibers to take. In fact, there's one I discovered. They're a tribe that has the healthiest guts in the world, and they eat this particular fruit. But again, we can't just look at fiber because we need to realize that when we're looking at gut and brain health, we have to look at the brain's immune system because it can either be pro-inflammatory and cause a lot of damage or anti-inflammatory and protective and causing neurogenesis and doing very helpful things. So we want to stop that from becoming overactivated. Um, the microglial can really influence the formation of new neurons by interacting with neural progenitor cells, supporting brain plasticity and repair. So our brain's immune system has an amazing ability, but it has to not be overactivated and it has to be working at a normal level. So there are all these things that can cause it to be activated. And that's the wonderful thing about functional medicine is that we don't treat symptoms. We look at the root cause. what is causing this inflammation to occur? What is causing the brain's immune system to go out of whack? So it can be these different toxins. It could also be your body's own immune system. And this is all as a result of a broken blood-brain barrier. And even with a healthy blood-brain barrier, some substances, if you have a leaky gut, can still overreact the brain's immune system. We also want to create cerebral blood flow. And that's a topic for a whole nother discussion, but it's also one of the things when dealing with traumatic brain injuries and with mental health conditions or a leaky brain. And then, of course, the body's own immune system. We don't want our brain to look like this on the right-hand side. We want our brain to look like this. And this is a result of some pretty nasty things happening. And we can just make some minor changes and really make a difference. So leaky guts can be repaired. A leaky brain can be repaired. Brain injuries, you might not be able to bring everybody back, but we can do so much to make the brain as healthy as possible and the gut as healthy as possible. And when we stop that inflammatory process and we allow some of the things like our brain's own immune system and different things of the microglial cells that it will produce and release that create neurogenesis and neuronal connections, we can start to see repair and things happen that were never thought possible. My name is Scott. I am a survivor of a severe traumatic brain injury who should have never come back. So I'm living proof that change can happen. I feel like my brain works better than it ever has. Um, I have been with people when I got treatment. I found a very unique individual, and I thought I knew everything because I was the head educator for the Institute of Functional Medicine outside the US. But you never know what other people know. And a fellow at Harvard Medical and some other people that were really involved in this subset of functional medicine called functional neurology really were able to bring me back. And then I learned from them and I was able to get a job speaking for them. And again, going back out and giving lectures to doctors and practitioners on neurologic health. And it's been an absolute joy. And so I opened my own practice because I know what I went through with my brain injury and I wanted to be able to help other people. And now I'm seeing people that have leaky brains and people with leaky guts that have turned into leaky brains. And I do free consults on Thursdays, and I'll put a picture of my smiley face up there where you can go to my YouTube channel, which has my website. I'll put it in the link below. And on Thursdays, I do free consults, and you can just talk to me and ask me questions because even though my practice has gotten busier and busier as it's grown, I want to be able to be there for people that are going through things. And if I can't help you or you're in a part of the world where I can't do something, find you the help that you need. But I am now able to dispense and treat people not only just in the US, but in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and in parts of Europe. And so that's really exciting that I can help people in different parts. Again, my name is Scott. My company's My Brain Mechanic, and I hope this has been really informative for you. And look forward to the next video. Bye.